What do you do when the guilt takes over and you start to descend into madness? This is the question we had before watching the Lovecraftian horror called The Older Gods. Released in 2023, this movie had a very small budget and was considered an independent production at the time of its release. Boy, it was fascinating. The writing, acting, cinematography, and even the production design was top-notch. What stood out in the movie was its genre and the subsequent treatment. This movie is a treat for all the Lovecraftian horror fans. Heard about The Ritual, Color Out of Space, or The Alien? These are all accomplished Lovecraftian horror movies. Director David A. Roberts does a great job at combining all the important elements from these movies and making a complete Lovecraftian package. But before we explore this movie, a brief description on the subgenre called a Lovecraftian horror, as many aren't aware of it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. H.P. Lovecraft and the lore of the unknown. The Lovecraftian horror genre is inspired by the work of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, Lovecraft had a twisted personality, and his writing totally conveyed that. His writing emphasizes the fear of the unknown, cosmic deities, and non-human influences on society. Basically, fearing what we haven't experienced yet. Lovecraft was massively inspired by the works of legendary writers like Edgar Allan Poe and Algernon Blackwood. He literally elevated the horror genre from the existing gothic level to the much scarier cosmic level. What came next was a series of twisted tales and movies that completely terrified the audiences. These movies had doubled the amount of jump scares, but most importantly, they had weird creatures that were never seen before. For reference, think about the alien or the spooky monster in Stranger Things. Now, Older Gods follows the same pattern, but there is lots of subtlety in it. The screenplay is very nuanced and doesn't rely on jump scares to hook you in. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have any, because there's a certain horrifying scene that is set to deliver a dose of horror when you watch it. But before discussing the scene, let's talk about the hair-raising synopsis of the movie. Older Gods, the epitome of Lovecraftian horror. In the behind-the-scenes interview, director David A. Roberts clearly stated that this movie has the potential to be one of the best Lovecraftian movies of the year, and he wasn't wrong. Before discussing the plot of the movie, a major spoiler alert for those who haven't watched it yet. So for starters, this movie is a psychological horror that follows the story of Chris Rivers, who has arrived in the Welsh countryside to investigate the death of his childhood friend Billy. Chris wants to prove his friend's innocence as he was charged with multiple murders before allegedly committing suicide. To aid his investigation, he gets a mysterious parcel from Billy as soon as he arrives in a remote cottage. But he's not alone there. It seems that the cult knows about his involvement, and soon Chris gets embroiled in a dark web of the cult. After looking at the spooky clips and testimonies, Chris understands that the cult has been sacrificing people to awaken a cosmic god known as the Origin. Now, this god is shown as the most powerful being in the universe, way more powerful than our own gods, and has the ultimate purpose to destroy our world. What's even more surprising is that the cult members are fascinated by this cosmic deity and are ecstatic when being sacrificed. On his treacherous journey to uncover the workings behind the truth, Chris becomes haunted by the cult and experiences a state of insanity and madness. This is where the standout nightmare scene of the movie truly shines. As stated before, Older Gods doesn't have many jump scares, but this scene alone makes up for everything else. Chris apparently tries to sleep after a long day of investigating his friend's death. What we see next is true cinema in action as Chris sees an unknown planet in his dream, and along with that, we hear a demonic voice stating, "Open the door and light the way, I am on the other side." Chris wakes up frantically and sees a hooded figure stalking him. However, the mysterious figure vanishes after a few minutes. Completely terrified, Chris stays awake throughout the night trying to figure out the mystery behind the cult. Now, this is where the movie picks off and we get a true insight in the workings of the cult. The next day, we see another mysterious figure saying the same thing over and over again. Open the door, light the way. Now, you may be wondering why everyone is saying the same thing. Well, there's a scary reason behind this. The arrival of the Origin and the Chosen One. Basically, the older god that this cult worships is extremely strong and also speaks to his devotees. But to awaken him, a certain Chosen One needs to make the ultimate sacrifice. However, we aren't aware who's the Chosen One yet. It can be the cult leader, or Billy, who is shrouded in mystery. It can also be our protagonist, who has taken a deep interest in the workings of the cult. But we are rushing way ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on the story first. So after waking up from his nightmare, Chris finds renewed motivation to investigate this mysterious cult and soon finds a lead. While listening to Billy's recordings, Chris understands that this cult had their influence in the entire world, and Billy's team was trying to take them down by investigating all places where rituals and sacrifices have taken place. This sequence is shot extremely well, and Billy's voiceover acts as a great backdrop while Chris is investigating the spooky spots where these rituals have taken place. Chris soon arrives at a spot covered with oak trees and finds the ominous cult symbols of a circle inside a circle. After touching a branch, he could feel the sacrifices that had taken place there. Suddenly, all the birds in that vicinity started dying and crashing on the ground. Our protagonist gets extremely scared and rushes back to his cottage. He is starting to understand that this cult is demonic and an otherworldly presence looms large in the vicinity. So for protection, he calls the police, but instead he finds the hooded figure near the cabin. The mysterious cult leader also makes his way inside the house, but Chris isn't aware of that yet. He gets busy watching another clip where an accused is talking about all the brutal killings. Soon the policeman arrives at his place and asks him to leave the secluded cabin if he's scared. The great thing about this movie is that you never know who is good and who is evil. Everyone has an ominous personality, and even our protagonist, Chris, starts to develop it after learning about all the killings. Chris finds himself embroiled in the scary web of the cult and gets consistent nightmares regarding the arrival of the Origin and the Chosen One, but they are interrupted as he gets a call from his wife. Yes, Chris has a wife back in the United States who is expecting a child. Fearing their safety, Chris leaves behind everything and prepares to leave the secluded cabin. But guess what? The cult leader has the car keys and is keeping a stern eye on our protagonist. Chris runs back to the cabin and finds a recording of Billy's associate who brutally murders herself in front of the camera. The cult leader then proclaims that there's a lot to learn and his journey has just started. Chris Rivers, the Chosen One? Fed up of all the games, Chris picks up a knife lying on the ground and follows the cult leader to finish things for better. After making his way into the jungle, the leader is nowhere to be seen. Instead, there are two mysterious people who we saw before repeating the phrase, "Open the door, light the way." The cult leader then wants him to kill these people and let their light open the doorway. What's even more terrifying is that these people are ready to be killed and believe they will acquire salvation through death. But our protagonist still has some humanity left, and he makes his way back to the cabin where things get really heated. After returning, Chris realizes that the cult leader is already present there along with those mysterious people. He then gets informed that his friend Billy was in fact part of the cult and he found a place to belong. But we're still unsure if the cult leader is playing more mind games or that's the truth. Following this revelation, we find out that Billy lost his life in the same cabin Chris was residing in, leading to a massive breakdown by the protagonist. He then learns that Billy was the Chosen One and Chris would do the same by following his footsteps. He should join the cult and become the Chosen One himself. All the guilt will be over and he will have a peaceful time. But if he fails to comply, he will be mercilessly killed along with his wife and unborn child. Confused and scared, Chris starts to run from these mysterious people and in complete darkness. The setting was pretty dark, and in the ongoing chaos, Chris kills the mysterious guy and passes out. Chris then wakes up in the middle of the forest while hearing voicemails in his own voice. The cult leader had faked his voice and spoke profanities to his entire family while breaking contact with them. Now, Chris has had enough of the cult and gets visibly angry. The cult leader then removes his mask and makes a glaring confession. We find out that Billy was in fact innocent and didn't bow down in front of the cult. He chose humanity until the end, and that led to his demise. Chris is elated after hearing this, but it soon subsides as he is asked to work for the cult and become the Chosen One. But guess what? Our main man is done with the cult business and stabs himself, ending the entire ordeal together. He then wakes up in the afterlife and meets Billy. The childhood friends have a heartwarming reunion, and we can see Chris insanely proud of Billy. However, Chris can't stay for long because he needs to go back to meet his son. Yes, there's a plot twist. Chris isn't dead, and he has a son. He later wakes up in the hospital and meets the same police officer who came to the cabin. Chris was found bloodied in the middle of the forest and brought back to the hospital. He later speaks to his wife, who didn't believe in those fake voicemails and is ready to meet him. During the conversation, Chris spots something ominous on the next bed and gets visibly scared. Next, we see the cult leader walking in the forest saying the same thing. Open the door, light the way, and the screen fades to black. The mysterious cult and an ominous ending. The ending of the movie is shrouded in mystery, and there are many possibilities behind it. The first and most obvious is that the cult is still strong and they have moved on from Chris. The older god, also called the Origin, can make a return, resulting in a doomsday situation. There's also a possibility that the cult may try to take revenge on Chris and haunt him along with his family in a possible sequel. But will there be another sequel? Director David A. Roberts has confirmed nothing regarding a possible sequel. Considering the great reception that the movie got, we won't be surprised if the movie gets a green flag for a possible sequel. Until then, we can rewatch this twisted tale of horror. But if you're still not ready to watch the movie, well, in that case, let's look at the few reasons why this movie should be on your watch list. Why should you watch this movie? The runtime of the movie is 82 minutes, making it an ideal watch while winding down your day. But that's not reason enough. Therefore, let's look at the two main reasons why Older Gods deserves to be on your watch list. Number 1. An ideal Lovecraftian saga. When people hear the word Lovecraftian horror, aliens and terrifying creatures come to their mind. This movie has nothing of that sort, but still shines as a true Lovecraftian saga, and let me tell you why. Firstly, it's the way it is narrated. The entire movie basically revolves around the narration of Billy as he explains the profanities and the cosmic entities worshipped by this twisted cult. Instead of using the show-no-tell formula, the makers decided to tell you everything and leave the creatures up to your imagination. However, we still see a glimpse of a terrifying monster in the movie, and that's one of the best visuals in the entire 82 minutes. The nightmare scene should also be applauded, and I would seriously consider it on par with the clap scene from the movie Conjuring. Many would deny this movie as a true Lovecraftian horror because there is a lack of detail which we usually see in this subgenre. However, this makes it even better for people who are entering this genre. This can be a great starter movie if you want to explore the Lovecraftian horror, as it's a mix of many other genres, which brings us to our next point. Number 2. An aesthetic independent flick. When we hear the word independent film, a low-budget, lazily shot movie comes to our mind. But this movie is the complete opposite. Starting from the performances, Chris Rivers, played by Rory Wilson, does a fantastic job. Usually, a movie starring a single performer for the majority of scenes gets a bit tardy, but Rory's range is impeccable and he does great justice to the writing. Shot with a crew of 7 people, the cinematography of this movie is breathtaking. The blocking behind the scenes is great, and we always feel that something twisted and creepy is keeping an eye on the protagonist. Also, the music should be celebrated more. Essentially, when you make a movie without jump scares or literal demons, the visuals and music are extremely important, and David A. Roberts has paid great attention to that. The music can make you feel anxious, scared, and even inspire goosebumps in some scenes. The technical mastery behind this independent production helps us think what the makers would conjure if they had a massive budget. Marvelous verdict. Instead of thinking what could happen and what can be changed, Older Gods should be celebrated for what it is. An independent flick that punches way above its weight limit. If you don't believe me, then take a look at their accolades. This movie won the title of Best Horror Film at the LA Film Awards and the London Independent Film Festival. So if you've not watched the movie yet, then surely give it a shot. Although, if you've watched it, then take a look at a wide array of content on the Marvelous Videos channel, and maybe you can find your next favorite movie. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.